Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Figured, what better way to start the weekend than one of my favorite segments, History by Mail. And this one, there's a couple of pages in there, it looks like. Yep, so I've got a drink handy because it looks like there's going to be a lot of reading for this one. But let us get in and take a look and see what in the world we have. Manuel de la Peña y Peña Presidente, interino de los Estados Unidos Mexicanos. So Manuel de la Peña y Peña Presidente, the president, interim president of the United Mexican States. I cannot read that. That is a lot of writing. Okay, so we have Spanish on the left side, English on the right side. But I'm curious as to just what in the world this is. So we're going to, pardon me, set that there. We're going to get into it. Oh, wait a minute. Did they enclose the first two pages? Okay. Oh man, this is a good one here. Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. Forgive my out of order. It's not often that you get three sheets. So now we have the transcript of the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, February 2nd, 1848. So what in the world? Okay, here's all the articles. In the name of Almighty God. Was that where we were? A todos los presentes. For all those present. Why am I can't even read the English side of it with the text. If it was in better writing, I could actually read the Spanish. The United States of America and the United Mexican States, animated by a sincere desire to put an end to the calamities of the war, which unhappily exist between the two republics, and to establish upon a solid basis relations of peace and friendship, which shall confer reciprocal benefits upon the citizens of both and assure the concord, harmony, and mutual confidence wherein the two peoples should live. Okay, so is this... It's one of those, like, there were so many treaties that we learned about in history, and it's... Okay, universal peace. Okay, so the peace treaty between the U.S. and Mexico shall be appointed. Yeah, we would have a member of in the Mexican government. And this stuff is the actual government speak, so I will just let you take a look at that and pause if you would like to read it, because it is, if you've ever read anything governmental, it is a mouthful and a half. It goes nowhere and goes on forever. But there's Article 5, and then we've got the summation over here, which is what we're going to get into. See, this is what I'm talking about. Document continues for 30 more handwritten pages, totaling 37 handwritten pages. This is just the first 5 articles of the treaty. Oh, okay, so there you go. Article 5, which establishes the Rio Grande as the boundary, or as the border, I should say. All right. I love these, and I love the fact that this is just your regular paper, but this has a thicker stock, so it really adds to the whole thing. All right, we pause for a drink, and let's get into it as we read about the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo from February 2nd, 1848. Enclosed are the first 2 pages of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which officially ended the Mexican-American War. The treaty added more than a 500,000 square miles to the U.S. The treaty is written in both English and Spanish, and the enclosed version was given to the U.S. by Mexico after ratification by the Mexican government. Okay. So I guess the 37 pages was what the Mexican government sent. From Tejas to Texas. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain. The northern area of Mexico was sparsely populated and prone to livestock raids from nearby tribes. Distance from the government based in Mexico City also made it difficult to trade and communicate with northern Mexico. As a result, Mexico began a policy of encouraging U.S. citizens to act as a buffer between Mexico and the Comanche Native American lands in Tejas, the Spanish name for Texas. Mexico granted Moses Austin, a Missouri banker, a large tract of land for this purpose. Moses died before he could ever recruit fellow settlers, but his son Stephen Austin, considered the father of Texas, brought over 300 American families to Texas. The Austin colony was the most successful of several American colonies in Tejas and started a trend of American migration to the area. That's right, we're doing the westward expansion for this is the second of the four. The Mexican government intended for the Americans to settle in Central and West Tejas. The settlers, however, moved to East Tejas, where the farmland and trade connections with Louisiana were better. When American settlers failed to act as a buffer to the Comanches in West Tejas, Mexico sought to discourage further settlement by abolishing slavery in 1829, reinstating property tax, and increasing tariffs on American goods. I did not know that, actually. Still, Americans continued to settle in East Tejas. 14 years after independence from Spain, residents of Tejas, led by Stephen Austin, revolted against the Mexican government of Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. There's a name that will come up again in history. The revolution led to Tejas declaring independence from Mexico in 1836 and the establishment of the Republic of Texas. Though the Texans were defeated in the Battle of the Alamo, Santa Anna was ultimately defeated by the Texan army under General Sam Houston. At the Battle of San Jacinto, Santa Anna signed a treaty recognizing Texan independence. The annexation of Texas. Most Texans wanted annexation by the United States. Mexico, however, warned the U.S. not to annex Texas under threat of war. Despite the threat, under President John Tyler, Congress offered annexation to the Republic of Texas, and it accepted in 1845, becoming the 28th state. With the annexation of Texas, America inherited a border dispute with Mexico along South and West Texas. In 1845, President James Polk ordered troops to the disputed border with Mexico and sent diplomats to negotiate a purchase of California and New Mexico, but the offer was rejected. Polk believed in the concept of manifest destiny, that the U.S. was destined to expand across the North American continent. Therefore, it was America's destiny to control Texas, especially before the British could. Further, Polk believed that Mexico had only loose ties to the sparsely settled and barely governed Texas area, and most Texans were American citizens anyway. General Zachary Taylor, who would later become president, advanced to the mouth of the Rio Grande River, which Texas claimed was its southern boundary. Mexico considered this to be an act of aggression, as Mexico viewed the border to be further northeast on the Nueces River. Mexico sent troops across the Rio Grande in April of 1846. President Polk declared this advance an invasion and requested Congress to declare war against Mexico, which it did on May 13, 1846. Massachusetts Congressman and former President John Quincy Adams voted against the war, fearing that adding new Southern territory would expand slavery in America. Illinois Congressman and future President Abraham Lincoln and prominent writers Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson similarly opposed the war. Did not know that about Thoreau and Emerson. The Mexican-American War. The Mexican-American War lasted a year and 9 months, from April 25, 1846 to February 3, 1848. Battles were fought in present-day Texas, New Mexico, California, and throughout Mexico. The Americans had superior training, logistics, and weapons. The Mexicans, led by former President Santa Anna, were mainly armed with British muskets from the Napoleonic Wars that were at least 30 years old. And as we all know, muskets were, unless you were lucky and got the rifled ones, the rifled barrels, very hard to aim. Where were we? There we go. The Mexican army also had a high desertion rate, as soldiers were paid very little and had little motivation to fight. Political division within Mexico found its way into the Mexican army, with instances of infighting amongst Mexican soldiers. The Americans, on the other hand, were mainly motivated volunteers, especially the Texans fighting to protect their families and property. Less than 2 months after the Mexican-American War began, 33 American immigrants in California rebelled against Mexico and proclaimed California an independent republic. 33? 3 weeks later, the U.S. California Battalion subsumed the California Republic's couple hundred-man army. Am I pronouncing that right? Subsumed? The flag of the California Republic was adopted as the official California state flag in 1911. The Mexican-American War was the first U.S. war to be covered by mass media, which was overwhelmingly supportive. The telegraph, invented decades earlier, had become widespread and allowed for faster dissemination of news. Before the war, politicians, rather than journalists, had mainly shaped public opinion about armed conflict. Americans followed the war closely, and celebrations of American battle victories were held in major American cities during the war. Oh man, I'm really out of teaching practice. Those are the talking muscles. Those are the muscles that if you don't use them, you lose them, and I haven't used them in quite a while. Anyway, continuing on. The Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo. In September 1847, after military defeat in the fall of Mexico City, the Mexican government surrendered and entered peace negotiations at Villa de Guadalupe, Hidalgo, where the Mexican government had fled from U.S. troops. The chief clerk of the State Department, Nicholas Trist, and General Winfield Scott negotiated with representatives from the collapsed Mexican government. President Polk had sent a message with orders to move negotiations to Washington, D.C. However, in the 6 weeks it took for the message to be delivered to the American delegation, Mexico had already named its delegates. Nicholas Trist negotiated a peace treaty in defiance of the president, since he believed Polk did not fully understand the situation. Ooh, so going a little off script. The war officially ended on February 2nd, 1848, with the signing of the treaty. Trist sent a copy of the negotiated treaty to President Polk. The president, though frustrated with Trist over acting independently, nonetheless recognized the value of the deal and forwarded the treaty to the Senate for their consent. The Senate ratified the treaty by a vote of 34 to 14 on March 10, 1848. U.S. troops were then removed from Mexico City. Mexico relinquished 525,000 square miles, more than half its territory, to the U.S. This land includes sections of current-day Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, and Texas, essentially the entirety of the Southwest. In return, the U.S. agreed to pay Mexico $15 million and settle more than $3 million in outstanding claims of U.S. citizens against Mexico. In the aftermath. Even though the Mexican-American War was successful for America, it was a bloody and expensive war, causing President Polk to lose public support. Further, adding new territory to the U.S. fanned the flames of the slavery debate, which would result in the Civil War. God, that's right, 13 years later. You know, I know it was 1848, but because we're talking about the Mexican-American War, it didn't really occur to me that the Civil War was not that far away. President Polk did not seek a second term and died 3 months after leaving office in 1849. General Zachary Taylor used his fame as a battle hero during the Mexican-American War to propel him to the office of president. The Mexican-American War and resulting Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo changed the face of America by adding vast territory to the country and intensifying the debate over slavery. And sad to say that, there's the link if anybody would like to check it out. And yes, second of 4 about the American expansion series. But you have to think, yeah, there's always the good that comes out of war, but at the same time, there's just always bad. And as you can see right there, that last sentence, intensifying the debate over slavery, which, as time would tell, would come to a very ugly head 13 years later, and ultimately end, what would that be, 18 years after that, because the Civil War was around 5 years. Oh, it's really truly amazing, and it makes you think, like, all the things. And this is when my mom actually was taking history classes, and she said that once she started looking into, like, the treaties and the history and then who was getting involved in what, it's kind of amazing how one incident can just spin off to have such an impact on so many future things. It truly is. But this is a cool series. I mean, all of them have been great, but the American expansion one, I'm definitely enjoying, because last month, I believe it was the Louisiana Purchase, and now we have the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. So we're moving slowly west, and I can't wait to see what comes in the next 2 parts. So thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly did. And we will see you all later on. Have a pleasant weekend, everyone.